Well, hello there. Oh, weird. Oh, my. Hi, and welcome back. Today, I just actually wanted to talk about self love. And the reason why this topic actually came to mind is because I had, I wouldn't say experience, but I saw something that was kind of like out of body type thing. And that sounds weird to say, but I saw the situation and then I saw myself in that situation, um, years prior. And so I was just like, oh my, this, and it upset me because, of course, I have the knowledge now and I just know that apparently that person doesn't love themselves because they would allow, that to happen. And this isn't a place where we're trying to judge people for their actions or anything. It's just like becoming aware that, okay, maybe I'm honoring somebody else more than I honor myself, or loving someone else more than I'm loving myself. And we don't want to get the titles confused, self-love and selfish. Like, no, those are totally two different things. And so he's like, just because you love yourself doesn't necessarily mean that you're selfish. Like, no. And just because you're selfish doesn't mean like, oh no, I love myself. Oh, excuse the planes in the background. I have the window up, so it may be a little distraction. But hopefully, you can still hear what I have to say. Um, but yeah, so I have recently titled a video talking about saying no. No is okay, and I think that's one step into learning how to love yourself, because most of the time we put ourselves in situations where we don't want to do something, but we're afraid to actually voice it because we're thinking like, well, I'm gonna hurt that person, or that person isn't gonna respect me, and we don't know that it's totally the opposite. When you can continue to ask somebody to do something and they always tell you yeah, it can almost become a cycle of abuse. And the person that's doing it might not actually realize that, but they use it to their advantage. And that's just human nature. Not to say that that person's a bad person. It's like, no, if I know I can ask you to come into work 3 hours before every time, I ask, and it may be once in a while, then yeah, I can continue to ask you before asking anybody else. And it's more, and I wouldn't say selfish part, but it's just like, it's human nature. Like, we don't want to hear the word no. And so if I know somebody's going to say yeah, then I'm like, okay, I'm going to go to them first. And then if they say no, then I can't get mad at them for saying no. I have to respect their no and, go on to something else. And I don't think we as people realize that sometimes. And I know I didn't, because when I was first working at a job, I would say yeah, yeah, yeah all the time. And it was so funny. I don't know if I mentioned this before, but it was so funny. The first time I said no, like, the boss was like appalled, like, because I always say yeah, like I always say yeah. And so it's just like, what, And I'm not saying, I'm not saying just be like, no, 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 or whatever. But it's just like, be okay with saying no. And that's, I believe, one of the first steps in learning to love yourself is just realizing, okay, I don't have to do something for somebody else. And that's, oh my, that kind of sounds bad, but it's, because like, yeah, you want to help people, and that's fine, but it's just like, you have your own life, you have your own priorities, and you have to make sure that you're putting them first, because you have a purpose here as well. And so if you're so busy doing something for somebody else and making their stuff come to, I was gonna say to fruition, but making basically making them have to do less work. And I'm not saying that we're not supposed to help each other and do that. Yeah. But it's just like, some things is meant for that person to do, or meant for them to tell somebody else, or, whatever it is. So don't feel obligated that you have to do something for somebody in order for them to actually respect you. And so another thing, okay, on self love, is just spending time with yourself. Like, taking care of yourself, your mind, your body. We always talk about our body, eating right and stuff, getting sleep. But it's just like, realize that is so important. And sometimes we're running on fumes, and then we get frustrated with, our kids or our family, and it's just like, they're not even the person. You're the reason why you're upset, or you're the reason why your temperance is short, is because you're not taking care of yourself. And that's another, another very important step of self-love, is like actually taking the time to stop and say, okay, I need to rest, I need to sit down. And I'm not saying, be lazy, of course not. It's the time to rest, it's time to work. All those things are, it has its timing. And so we have to realize, but if we don't do that, that can actually hurt us more than help us, because we think, okay, I need to do this. It's like, yeah, it's time in the day. Like I said, it's time for everything, but don't overdo it and then cut yourself short in other areas because you're working yourself. And so make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because that's another thing. If you're so busy running and doing things for other people, that's very draining, and nobody can live like that. The human body is not meant to do that. So I thought I maybe would have more, but I don't know. I guess we'll continue this video if I have, but I don't know. I really wanted to share because, like I said, I witnessed that the other day, and I was just like, oh my, it was like an anger behind it more than a judgment, because I'm just like, why are they doing it? Why are they allowing them to treat them that way? And it's because I have learned to love myself. And of course, I'm still learning each and every single day that I have to say no to certain things. And, I have to pray and ask the Lord, like, okay, guide me in this, show me, what to do. Because I don't never want to get to a place where I'm just being mean and just like thinking of myself. But I also don't want to be put in a place where I'm just like being someone's puppet, where like if they tell me to do something, I'm like, I'm all for it. And it's like, no, I have stuff I need to do. So, okay, another thing, thank you, Lord. Another thing of self-love, I would say having standards and boundaries. And that's how you're going to continue to, and I wouldn't say protect yourself, but it's just more so, I guess it is, protecting yourself, allowing yourself to not get in a place where you're tired or, wore down because you haven't set boundaries or standards in place for people to realize, okay, I can ask Didi for this, but after 9 o'clock, you can't get Didi. Well, and I don't think I've ever introduced myself. I am Kadisha, but I go by Didi. He was like, you don't get me after that time. And that's just something, I'm winding down and you don't get me before a certain time. Like, no, and that's just something I've kind of set in place, and I've learned, because at first, you can text me, and I wouldn't say anybody could text me, but I didn't have it set on my phone. Now it's set on my phone where my phone won't even let it go through. Like, my phone is like, she's out, she's out at the moment, so you cannot talk to her. And it's just like, hey, and some people may say, well, that's nothing. It may be something different for you. Each person is different. But learn what your standards and boundaries are and set those. And hey, because we're most of the time free for all, it is hard. It's hard to make that change. But it's just like, if you don't do it, you'll continue to be unhappy because you're doing something that you don't enjoy, or you're allowing people to be in a space where you're like, I really don't like them to do that. And it's just like, say it. And that's one thing that I really and I wouldn't say admire, because the Lord says don't admire wickedness and evil, but about people who I don't want to say this that way, maybe not walking with the Lord, or don't not believe in the Lord, or not even necessarily don't believe, but just like not walking with the Lord, or showing their walk with Christ. Like, they'll tell you no in a minute and be okay with your no. But us as Christians, we have put people have put like this burden on us that if we say no, like, you're not a Christian, or that's not godly to say no. It's like, say what you want. But you can ask me something, and if I want to do it, I'm gonna say no. And I may or may not give you a reason. I don't know, I probably talked about this in another video. I may or may not give you a reason, but I'll be talking to the Lord after. I'm like, Lord, this person, I'll be talking to the Lord about John. So. Oh my, that's so funny. But but yeah, so hey, put your standards and boundaries in place so that you can be loving on yourself, because like your family, and especially, you know, people who have children, if you don't have children, like your work, it is more beneficial to you when you're not burdened down with things that basically are, and I wouldn't say not important, but are not relevant, you know, to your life. Because a lot of things that we do and make time for, it's not some, oh, that sounds bad, because like you don't want to do something that's always beneficial for you. That's not what I'm saying. But it's just like at the end of the day, it's more so, it's not for you to do. I guess that's just plainly put, it's not for you to do. And it's so hard, especially just being, you know, a loving person. You want to help as many people as you can. And that's not what I'm saying. Yeah, help people, you know, do that. But it's just like, realize there's going to be a time where you have to say no and love you. Love you. And that's loving you by saying no and just like, okay, you know, all right, okay, I can't deal with this anymore. And I think the hardest part is just the change of it, because sometimes we do things for so long it becomes our norm, and that's not, it's not a good norm. It's more of a and toxic is a bad word to say, but it's more of something like, it's like a learned behavior. And so once you've learned it and it's been, you know, constantly like, okay, yeah, this is okay, this is okay. And then once you realize like, okay, this is not okay, then you have to just like change it, and it feels awkward. I know, you know, I know for me, like I said, with my boss, and I said no, and they were like, you know, it took them back like, hold on, she just said no. And then, you know, another time they asked, and I was like, oh yeah, I can do that. And it's just like, I'm the one who makes a choice, not them. So now when they call me or whatever, they were like, okay, I know it's a possibility that Kadisha will say no. But it's also a possibility that she say yeah, but I will respect her answer either way. And I'm not saying that they didn't care about me or anything like that. It's like, no, they have a job to get done, and they're trying to get people to fill the position. And so yeah, you know, you have to do what you're doing. Your boss, I commend your bosses out there, have to fill people in. But at the end of the day, I hope that people learn to love themselves, because I think that's why our generation, our next generations, because the generations before, and I'm not blaming a whole generation on not loving themselves, but it's because of brokenness that has happened, and it's just like being passed on. And so we have to stop that cycle and realize like, no longer will I live in a broken state. I will not. I will be loving on myself, you know, loving on my neighbor to my best ability, and so that I can bring forth the next generation. My children can be the ones that stand up and say they love themselves and be an impact to the world also. And so that's why I really wanted to get on here and just talk, because I want people to love themselves. Because I'm in a place where I wouldn't say I didn't love myself, but I guess that's what it is. And that goes back to another video of just, you know, identity, not knowing who I was. And so that's another factor. You know, if you don't know who you are, is more so of an insecurity. And so you do things because you're just like, you want to be accepted by people. You want to, you know, fit in. And it's just like, we don't realize that standing out is the best thing that you can do, you know, because we're all unique, and we're not meant to look like the next person or act like the next person or talk like the next person. And so I'm kind of switching off this video, but I think it all goes back to, you know, self-loving, learning how to love yourself, because that's so important. And it's something you want to be able to pass on, not only to your children, but to the next generation, because this world is not your friend. And it won't tell you to love yourself. It's going to tell you to be more so selfish, you know. And we think, like I said, selfish and self-love is not the same thing. It's like, you know, get. And that's what oftentimes you get someone who's insecure on the opposite side. That's, you know, trying to make other people under them and make them feel, feel better. But that's a whole nother story. But I hope I've encouraged you. I hope you've been able to get something from this video. Yeah, so until next time.